the first question that comes up with any kind of electric vehicle or hybrid vehicle is, if we're going to plug them into the grid to pull electricity, where is that electricity going to come from? Are we going to burn fossil fuels for it, or do we need a nuclear energy to supply electricity for these vehicles? But with a lot of the newer technology coming out with solar and wind, and there's a lot of renewable resources that we can pull from to be able to power these vehicles. So long term, we're looking at a much more renewable energy for these vehicles and a much less damaging to the environment method of powering vehicles. Nationally speaking, a lot of schools aren't doing much for hybrid curriculum, period. It's a new thing. In fact, I've been attending Sinclair Community College is one of the partners in the League of Innovation. The last 4 or 5 years, they've gotten an NSF grant to teach other instructors about hybrid technology and to get other schools involved with developing curriculum and starting to teach. That's been involved in just hybrid technology, generically speaking. Looking at it from the perspective of, if you go to the Chicago Auto Show, for instance, this past year, the Lexus automobile fleet is, it was all but one vehicle was hybrid. And now we've got the second wave of hybrids that were coming out. There were a half a dozen plug-in hybrid vehicles and electric vehicles now starting to hit the market. And nobody's teaching anything about that yet. That technology is very bleeding edge. So there's going to be a need to start to train people to be able to work on these as they come out of warranty and things like that. For instance, in our community, nobody's teaching hybrid vehicle technology, and hybrids have been around since about 2001. So many of those vehicles are out of warranty, and outside of the dealers and the manufacturers, there's nobody training, and there's going to be a great divide between the haves and have-not as far as training goes on those vehicles. So on the horizon in the automotive industry, there's a huge wave of electric vehicles and plug-in technology, and a need for a lot of infrastructure to support those vehicles. Because this is an entirely new technology, not something that was already existing that we're adapting to, there's a need for everything from gas stations to municipalities to local businesses to want to support these vehicles for them to survive. When I did the application, I went in to talk about getting a grant funding to get a hybrid charging station. We needed more equipment, we need more vehicles. There's a lot of needs that we have as an automotive program that weren't being funded through normal channels. So in going to grant services, they suggested this Endowed chair project as a way to try and find funding, or at least to get research done to figure out what avenues we needed to take to get the funding. So when in there, they're pretty helpful about telling me, you know, what all was entailed, what avenues we could take, and through the research we were able to find that Cedar Rapids had an energy grant that they weren't completely using at the point. They were still trying to allocate the last bit of funds. So this ended up being a great partnership between the city and the school to be able to put the first electric vehicle charging station in eastern Iowa. And the funny thing is, that's absolutely the way it worked. Is I went to Chris O'Brien to ask, well, I've got this huge problem, I need money. You know, I got this, we need this, and we need money to get this, and what's the best way to do it? Yeah. And they were excited about it because it was something that would involve more than just my department. It was facilities was involved, we were involved, the city was involved, grants was involved. Continuing education was even pulled in just to say, well, where else can we take this? The effect on students, the big thing is going from what was a 2-credit hybrid class that we were already teaching on how to work safely around them. Now it's going to give us the ability to teach these students how to work on them and to deal with the high voltage and the much higher technology involved. It's kind of funny how I became to do it for a career. As a kid, growing up, I watched my dad always be working in the driveway, working in the garage on his own vehicles. He had a lot of hot rods and things. So I became pretty natural at anything mechanical at a young age. I got into motorcycles and four-wheelers and things like that. And in high school I had a hot rod and I did it as a hobby. It was something that I just enjoyed doing. When I went to college I ended up signing up for electronics engineering, not really knowing for sure what I wanted to do. I liked high technology and things like that. And never really thought about it as far as the automotive trade. About 2 weeks before I started classes, I started asking the instructors, well, where are all these guys going when they get out? You know, what are they doing for a career? So I have a better idea what direction I'm headed in. They were telling me a lot of the guys were going to Rockwell Collins to work on avionics. So I asked them, well, what if that's not what you wanted to do? Had a lot of family that worked there, and not that there was anything wrong with it, I just didn't want to go do what everybody else in the family was going to do. So I ended up falling back on my hobby and signing up for automotive technology and finding out that it was a lot more technological and a great fit for me. Kind of went from there. The one overriding thing I got going through this program as a student was the fact that they were trying to innovate, and at a time when nobody was using oscilloscopes, my second-year instructor went out of his way to borrow an oscilloscope from somewhere to give us contact with it. So this is what's coming down the pipe. This is what you're going to need to know. We don't have the way to teach you real well on it right now, but we want to get you exposed to it. So I want to one of the things I want to be able to give back to the school and to the students of tomorrow is that same deal. What's coming down the pipe? Not so much what do you need to fix cars today, but what are you going to continue to need to fix cars in the future?